right, welcome to the Lockdown Podcast. An unforeseen situation happened, so Tim is not going to be here today. Thoughts go with his girlfriend and stuff going on, but we will still continue to press on with the podcast. Um, so we have quite a bit continuing to go on Raw and SmackDown. Definitely, it's pretty much Judgment Day nonsense on one and Bloodline stuff on the other. Very, the whole show essentially feels like it centers around those two. So we have on Raw. So this whole thing with Gunther, and basically kind of Randy getting his kind of, you know, solidifying it. If Gunther beats him, all right, cool. We have a definitive answer. Obviously we did in that King of the Ring. So, um, it's a lot to digest considering like obviously we all seen what happened. So it's not like, it's some mystery that Gunther essentially got one over on Randy. So we have that show kickoff. We have Gunther coming out, yada yada. Ludwig, continues to be a thorn in the side. Um, but obviously, it's predictable, with the whole Ludwig thing and attacking and the numbers game seeming to always play a part. So now we'll kind of roll over to this whole Sheamus Pete Dunne nonsense because now Pete Dunne essentially is getting under the skin of pretty much anybody. I feel like, NXT's not safe, Raw's not safe. From Pete Dunne, obviously Sheamus beats him in the one-on-one. No real surprise. Given honestly, it feels like Sheamus is just kind of like, I don't know what your problem is, but hey, whatever, we'll solve it like the good Irishmen do, and we fight. And I wish honestly that was just kind of how things went in real life, if you really think about it. Like, and so we have that going down. And so now we will roll over to we have Maxine Dupree versus Ivy Nile. Um, Now we get what I would like to call is that no woman is safe now on Monday Night Raw because obviously Nikki Cross gets involved. And now it seems to be not only the men are getting stuff dished out with American Made, now no one's safe. Um, so like, what do you think as far as I mean, like how the utilization of the whole Wyatt Six in regards to kind of it seems to be just like they're picking apart one story right now to go with. I don't know how long it'll go. Like, so what do you think as far as like how Wyatt Six essentially business is going?
Well, I don't think that they are being misused. I think they're being used in a very strategic way to keep the audience coming in week after week. They want to see what happens when, Uncle Howdy and Chad Gable go at it. They want to be able to see like the other characters. Again, I'm not the demographic for this. Yeah, but let's just see how it all plays out.
Yeah.
With the Chad Gable American Made faction and the White Six faction. I think it'll probably just be the classic misfits trying to get over or getting over on the jocks or the affluent
It's
entitled
it's it's kind
athletes.
of it's kind of like someone beating up the bully, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. And then we'll probably get them as as a feature act where they probably won't be on Raw every week and they'll show up when it's necessary
Well, and
that
I
sort of
think
thing.
that's good utilization of them and, like, kind of what they've been presented as is kind of the ones that do the wrong to fix the right,
Mm,
and, you're kind of like the villain that's not a villain, because they really have they've been presented as more of, like, the judgment of the ones who do bad.
right.
And fine, and I think
Yeah.
that's essentially continuing, the Bray Wyatt story, because really, The Fiend really wasn't, like he wasn't good or bad. He was just this unbeatable whatever character, and so, I like the hit and miss week to week with them, because I feel like it's kinda the same thing like with Roman Reigns, right? You have
Mhm.
Roman that doesn't show up every week, but everybody shows up every week.
Right.
Get it,
Right. Yeah.
right?
The same style of booking with Roman Reigns. Yeah. Yeah. Just, let them get through this. I think this is probably more of like an introductory phase. You can see what we do, testing the waters of where they can take the characters and where they can build up interest.
Right.
Obviously they want to have a big marketing machine behind them. So it takes a little bit of time, and WWE is like trying to like give us layer after layer in their storytelling. So yeah, like you just said, no one's safe. Let them go. I'm glad there we can figure out there's a purpose in how they are booking and promoting the characters and the stories, and it's not just like, we have no idea what's going on. Now, granted, we have no idea what the end game is, but there is definitely it's trickling out in such a way that it's keeping people interested. From the video vignettes to the segments that they're in, people are interested. People are talking about it. People want to, still be a part of the world that Bray Wyatt was creating and the WWE was presenting. So, yeah, and it's good for Bo Dallas to get back in the ring and for him to just be able to, honor his brother by carrying on that work. Other than that, yeah, again, I keep saying it, I'm not the demographic, but good for them, good for all the performers and wrestlers that are doing it, that are in that. They have something to do. They're on TV, so they can show how talented that they are and why they were, chosen to be a part of this story.
Yeah, and I think honestly, it's kind of cool that they have presented them as who they are as an actual character, but
Mhm.
also who they are as a wrestler. And so, like, it's not like you're like, oh, it's Huskus the pig. Like, no, it's Joe
Right, right,
Gacy.
right.
It's Mercy the Buzzard.
Yeah,
No, that's Dexter Loomis. And I think honestly, I feel like Eric Rowan is essentially just he's the perfect piece because he's OG.
right, yeah,
And just the amount of continued homage to Bray Wyatt that happens on TV, even as far as I mean, it's on SmackDown, but I'll just get to it since we're talking about Wyatt 6. But like,
mhm,
essentially, Jacob Fatu did a very subtle, you know, to and it's the subtle things, but I think it doesn't matter. I don't even think it matters what company of wrestling you're in. You give respect where respect is due as in the regards to Bray Wyatt. Um,
yeah,
so so we'll move on to what I find, and I think you find, and I'm sorry Tim can't debate his angle, but CM Punk Drew McIntyre strap match for Bash in Berlin. I don't care.
yeah,
I sent
yeah,
that clip earlier this week about basically, it was it was one of the podcasts, and it was just like WWE does not need CM Punk.
no,
Like, he's just mad because he got fired from the last company. Every time he quit WWE, goes to AEW, gets fired, and then all of a
not to,
sudden
not
comes
not to mention that he spent a good chunk of that time, um, basically
bashing
trying
WWE.
to fight in MMA and basically gets fired from there too. So,
he's nostalgia, but from, and maybe, some people are still on the boat. They're still on the CM Punk train, but I
Right.
just we don't need you. Like,
You know,
and I hate to
yeah.
just to be super blunt about it, but like him coming back just waters down the other talent. He's taken up way too much TV time. He's he's it's like Drew McIntyre does not need CM Punk. And I get it. This is 10, 15 years in the making between him and CM Punk, but like we don't need it. Okay? We
Yeah.
don't like CM Punk. I'm sorry. I don't know why people graded his match so high. It was so basic. His move set was so boring. It wasn't the CM Punk of old. And I get it. He's older. I get it. But like when you are in one of the biggest storylines in WWE right now, and you put on a match that easily could have been put on by anybody else and done better.
You know, I don't want to talk about too much of his work rate just because he's an older performer. His body's banged up, but he still can deliver. He delivered a good match. Um, I don't have a problem with the match. What I do have a problem is, and I think you just touched on it, is that he's taking he could be taking other spots, and people will argue it's like, well, if he can take your spots, then it wasn't X's spot to have or whatever have you. I think they've injected CM Punk because they know he's still a draw because of where he just came from. And where he just came from, it reminded of people why it's easy to hate on him. But in but some people thrive in an environment where there is a lot of structure, a lot of rules, a lot of accountability. And when it's not there, people will take advantage of it and they won't be able to put themselves in the best light. And I think that is maybe some of what happened with CM Punk in his last uh, professional wrestling contract. Uh, but the work he's doing now, I think, suits who he is in his career. Meaning, it's his work rate is not going to be 5 stars, right? But he's going to be able to tell a story in the ring and through merchandise and through interviews and be
He's marketable.
but yeah, basically that's a long way of saying yes. He's marketable and he's has the ability to still connect with part of the demographic that WWE wants
Yeah,
to sell to.
it's like almost like the flip side of CM Punk is in WWE like Edge is in AEW.
Right. And
Like
I think,
it's
yeah,
marketable money that you can make off popularity and essentially the nostalgia of who the wrestler once was, but you're getting them in real time. It's no different than than musicians doing like farewell tours and stuff like that. Like it's not about
yeah.
how good the music is, it's the fact that you get to see that person
Yeah,
in
and they're
real time.
performing your greatest hits. They're,
Exactly. And
you're
that's
you're with your friends. Yeah. So
yeah.
I can understand and I can get that. I am still butthurt, so to speak, over what went down at his previous place of employment,
Yeah.
um, and how he's being treated in the WWE.
Yeah.
It's kind of like,
Well, he definitely has a
yeah,
shorter leash than 10 years ago.
yeah. And I, maybe, who am I to say that WWE was wrong for, you know, claiming him,
Right.
getting rights on him and putting him in a program. It's like, one, we want to let people know that we still and we will continue and always have what it takes to, tell great stories in professional wrestling.
Yeah.
2, we got the money to do it, and 3, we'll present him better,
Yeah.
and um
Well,
let
and
him yeah, let's just see how this goes. If if it was up to me, I would try to find a way to get him main eventing WrestleMania and to get him off TV as quickly as I can while honoring my contracts and putting him in the best stories I could. But I don't want to give him any leeway or any type of vibe that says, "I'm gonna let you run all over me," or
yeah,
"I'm gonna,"
we're not. This isn't the Vinnie Mac era, man. Like,
yeah,
and
yeah,
and there's a lot of chatter, a lot of everything that basically CM Punk is. He's on a tight leash. This is not essentially I guess the tail end of the Attitude Era. This is not. We're not pushing the envelope as much. We're not. Creative freedom. It all depends on how good the story is, right?
right.
And so, like, right now, CM Punk, he's doing what he's always done, and he's talking on the mic, and he's getting things amped up. He's like a hype man, right? I mean, that's
Mhm.
essentially what he is. Because honestly, like you said, his product, his rest, beyond the mic, his product is, it's tolerable, it's decent, but like
Yeah.
sometimes it's more about the story to it than the
Mhm.
once you get there, much like Cody
Yeah.
Rhodes' situation, right? Like sometimes the story to it is where it's at versus when it actually happens. And
Right.
and that's fine. I think CM Punk, I honestly feel like this would be a good farewell scenario for like him and John Cena to like ride off into the sunset. You
Yeah,
know?
I think I may have mentioned something similar to that as well. Get them both off of TV if that's where they wanna be. Um, the crazy thing is that I may have heard CM Punk mention that maybe he goes down to NXT, or someone has said maybe NXT for CM Punk. I'm like,
Just like
unless he,
we can't go backwards. We have enough
I,
storytelling on NXT right now. We do not need him to interject in the developmental of the rest of it. Like you want to go down there as a mouthpiece to like breathe positivity and encouragement into other wrestlers. I'm all
yeah,
for it.
yeah,
But I
maybe
don't want to
something
see
like
you on
that.
TV. You want to be in the
Yeah,
behind the scenes. That's perfectly fine. It's perfectly
yeah,
acceptable, because you do have a lot of wrestling wisdom,
yep,
so I respect the wisdom aspect, but I don't want to see you on the mic. I don't want to see you on like, and I know I think he's gonna be at some Chicago show when they go on the road. I think is it Randy Orton and
and
CM Punk,
CM
or is
Punk,
it? So like
yeah,
I'm all
so
for that aspect of it, but like
yeah,
I don't need you in matches. I don't need you interjecting. They want your brain, not your brawn. So
right,
um,
yeah,
but so we'll roll past because obviously as well as I do our feelings on the chick magnet Punk. So,
yeah,
and people don't even understand that it stands for chick magnet. So I don't even know why. Like he made it cool, but like I digress.
yeah,
But so now we'll go. So we have Odyssey Jones and the New Day defeating Final Testament, and I have to say, whether New Day dismantles or whatever it does, it adapts. I like Odyssey Jones. Okay, like
yeah,
he had a slow burn getting to the main roster, and he kind of sat stagnant for a while. But I
right,
feel like it's all about timing, and I feel like it's just perfect timing. He is a he's literally Mark Henry incarnate. Okay, like he's Mark Henry 2.0. The dude is strong. The dude is fast. Like he just has that presence of the larger than life, right?
yeah, yeah,
You know, like it doesn't matter how like they maneuvered to get him to like basically dual sidewalk slam AOP. Either
mhm,
way, that is a monster of a man. Even if they're holding on to him, that means he's still holding them up. So like
right,
people
yeah,
don't understand is that like just because the other wrestler's holding on to you doesn't mean you're still not holding their weight. Okay?
yeah.
You know, you misunderstand the strength of some of these wrestlers. I'm sorry.
Some
You
of
know,
some people do,
like
yeah, they, yeah,
John Cena holding up Big Show and Chris Jericho. that's ridiculous. You know, some of these wrestlers lifting up Bronson Reed, people lifting up
Yeah,
Braun Strowman or Otis. I mean,
yeah,
strength is you just don't understand. You can call it fake, whatever you want to call it, but I want to see you do what they do.
yeah.
So,
I
so
think it's
until you can
it'll be a
lift
tall
Otis up
task
over on,
for a lot of people.
until you can lift Otis on your back, you can just shut your pie hole.
Yeah,
So
definitely. You did see the video that I sent, someone, well, WWE posted a behind the scenes with Karrion Kross and his wife Scarlett talking about, sabotaging the New Day, laying in seeds of doubt. And,
yeah, I've seen
so
a
I
lot of
think,
those videos just on my own reel, just because my
yeah,
own freaking reel basically knows that I just spin through WWE stuff. So a lot
mhm,
of the videos you send, I'm like, yep, I've already seen that one. But yeah,
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 yeah.
no, I
I
think,
think, yeah. I what? So what do you think? What do you think?
I mean, I really think that honestly, Xavier Woods is gonna snap. I feel like Kofi Kingston is definitely all about, Odyssey Jones. But Xavier has always had, ever since he showed up, he's had that seed of doubt that essentially Karrion Kross and Scarlett are talking about. Like they're putting things in his head, and it's more like, don't pay attention to theatrics, pay attention to what's actually going on.
Mhm,
And so, you continue to see the facial expressions. You know, you don't have to hear him talk. You can just see how he reacts. When Odyssey Jones all of a sudden showed up that one, like, a couple weeks ago, all of a sudden he's kind of like, "You didn't tell me, Kofi. Like, you didn't tell me anything about this." And then he kind of comes back, and you kind of see Xavier get that kind of that half, half like half
mhm.
happy kind of facial expression about Odyssey Jones. And then it's like, outside of that, like, obviously Big E has given him, the two thumbs up, you know, but obviously they're not going to talk about that on TV because that would just ruin the whole story. So,
Right. Yeah.
but
But
it's
there has to come a point where, okay, do we want to keep New Day together and repackage them? Okay, we've got to get through this, like, we got to get through this point with Odyssey Jones and um Xavier Woods. Do we want to see New Day split and Kofi Kingston and Odyssey Jones become a tag team? It's a good way to get, Odyssey's main roster training and chaperoning, if you will, in a tag team. Um, because everyone feels that New Day has ran its course, right? I think maybe New Day has not ran its course, but there can be a new iteration of New Day and having fun, being very positive, doing their thing. And then we can get an Xavier Woods that goes after, US championships or intercontinental championships and have them get the band back together, eventually. It's
well, I
there,
just
there
think
doesn't need to be a feud or, a horrible breakup, it just something that we need to see how it goes. And maybe, just maybe, we can get one more Big E match. We can maybe even get Big E back in the ring, and everyone's talking about Big E and Drew based upon that fan fest that happened with the WWE. So it'll be interesting to see, because a lot of things Karrion Kross has been positioned to do is to undermine the confidence of wrestlers. To they're building, there's a layered story with Karrion Kross going on, and I think he gets glossed over with him being able to destroy from within.
well,
Like,
I mean,
so
th-
there's a story with Karrion Kross, and I don't know what the payoff is yet because it's still kind of like in its developmental stage, but he has beaten a lot of former world champions, a lot of legends. He's, they've got something brewing with him, and it might surprise a lot of people because they wouldn't have, Triple H wouldn't have brought back Karrion Cross if he didn't see something in him. With that said, getting back to the New Day and Odyssey Jones, I think we're gonna get a chaotic thing with them, a chaotic story, but I think the power of positivity will win out with those three, and they'll get all on the same page. And whether Xavier has to go and do a Jay Uso, fine, so be it.
I
Let's
don't
go. You know,
I don't buy Xavier Woods independently of the New Day. I just
I
he
can't.
if
I
I mean,
can.
even if he went heel, like,
Mhm.
he just doesn't put the fear in me. Like,
I
could
don't
he
think
kick
it
my
has.
ass? Yeah, he could.
Yeah.
But as far as like this, the WWE, like, I feel like some characters and some, superstars, they thrive in, a group, right?
Right.
Because, you know, where would JD McDonough be by himself? Nowhere.
Yeah. Yeah. He
Finn
would
Balor
definitely
be
be
fine
struggling.
by himself. Carlito by himself really doesn't fit the bill, right? He came back, and he joined LWO, and then he turned his back on LWO, but then he went right back to a new faction because he's a good background presence, right? Because he
Right.
is nostalgia.
Yeah.
And the fact that every time something happened when Dominic and Liv, Liv was saying, "That's cool," like,
Yeah.
just those little things from him is all I need from him. His finisher, the backstabber, is garbage. It is something Sasha Banks has done for 20,000 years. So many
Yeah.
wrestlers have done the backstabber, and the
I
fact that
mean,
he
it
is
it it
pushed
works
so
for
far.
him. So yeah, I can see Xavier Woods being a singles guy. It
Well,
he needs to have the right creative and the right push. But I don't think it needs to come at the expense of having it be bad blood between Kofi and Odyssey Jones. It needs to be one of those things where it's just like, I need to pursue this because this right here, I miss Big E too much for me to continue on with this. And
like,
Odyssey,
it's
and let it's going to get aired out one way or the other, and I don't need it to be negative, but we may need to see a little bit of like, you know,
I
conflict within
I
the
think,
group in order for it to be really positive for everyone.
it's definitely what I've said a million times over is we'll wait and see, right?
Right.
We'll see what continues to break down over Raw. We'll say the next. I feel like there's going to be a definitive something, in the next month, right? Like, I feel like, whether it's, let's say down the road we get a Xavier versus Kofi match or something, right? Like, and then they hash it out and then they're fine.
Yeah.
Maybe we get that. I don't know, but again, we'll wait and see.
Or maybe we're all gonna get, you know, we're all gonna be, shocked when it's Odyssey Jones that turns on both of them. It's just like, you both are weak. I need strong positivity. You're
Him
just
and
positive,
so
you know.
so
So
we'll
yeah.
we'll well let's say he combines with what we have to talk about next, which is Big Bronson Reed, right? So obviously he
Oh
beats the crap
gosh.
out of the Miz. He continues to do his literally tsunami continually, and I tell you, I love it. Okay, I
Yep.
love this
Yes.
big ass man
Yep.
just jumping off the top rope and just all meat on
Yep.
just slamming, dude. I love his meat slamming. Okay,
Yes.
he is a big man. He's damn near. He's the Australian freaking Bam Bang Bigelow. Okay, like,
Yeah.
in the realest of sense, okay? Short of, like, he's very talented, and I like what he's doing now. I think that they are creatively pushing him into, extending him being a heel, right? He's
Right.
always been heelish, but I feel like
Mhm.
now they're turning up the heat. and I love it. Okay, so now you basically have, you know, Braun Strowman comes out to kind of basically thwart off the plans of Big Bronson Reed beyond what he's already done. You know,
Right.
I think honestly it kind of sucks because you have, one big SOB
Yep.
that seems to like they don't run that character all the time, right? Like
Hmm.
he gets beat by people all the time that are much smaller, like not as big, and it's like, how are you going to define him as the monster of all monsters? And it was, the Strowman Express, and now he's got the Pat McAfee inspired one big SOB, and like they don't play him as that monstrous, and I feel like it's a giant miss. But again, I mean, look at the roster. I mean, you
Yeah,
can't,
the roster is deep. They've got
y-
so many ways and places that they can take any one of these characters that they're developing and make it entertaining, like Big Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker. I mean,
yeah. So,
that's fun. You've got Braun Breaker and Strowman. They both use very high impact moves to like take down their opponents. So there's so many different ways that this can go with this roster, but starting to develop Bronson Reed as another monster on Raw, I think is exciting because we know the potential and we've seen the work that Bronson Reed has put in. And yeah, even when he left for a short time, um, he had very good matches. Some of
yeah.
them were bangers. So yeah, let's go.
So okay, so we'll kind of fast pace through Raw here, but I mean, obviously Judgment Day, more build to the match, coming on Saturday. Another beatdown, go figure. It's the Judgment Day's MO. So now you have Alba Fire and Isla Dawn basically win a triple threat tag team match to retain. I feel like they are the ones that you hate to love and love to hate, because like
Mm,
because when they won, like, you're like, okay, this is just a gimmick. This is just to basically where the pay-per-view was, right?
right.
And fast forward, we have them facing back off against the people they won them from, with Bianca and, Jade. So I mean, it's gonna be interesting as far as that. But we'll get to that. So obviously Randy Orton defeats Ludwig, no problem.
Right.
And then we continue to have more build with, the Gunther match, which I feel like, man, that match is gonna steal the show.
Yeah,
I
it
hate to I
they're
hate to downplay what really is, all the other stuff going on, but like it's just got like you have the new guy that's been champion for 75% of his title run, 70% of his career, you know, like that's insane. 75% of the time he's holding
right.
something.
Well, I
Um,
mean, it's just how they're billing him. I
well,
think he's unstoppable? No, he's definitely been beaten, but they are also investing very heavily because of his ability to stay in the ring, his stamina. He looks very good there's definitely been a physical change. He's put in the work. Yeah, just like Damian Priest. So you know what?
they're gonna take this
Yeah,
thing and run because I
yeah,
really like, he just has a presence about him that, he respects the business, and it's not a gimmick. He legitimately does. This isn't like, some character build. Like he legitimately does love sports entertainment.
yeah.
Um, but so we'll roll over to SmackDown. So obviously you have the Bloodline come out. So this is what we were kind of talking about beforehand, is the fact that Solo basically asked Jacob Fatu for the belt, and then he's like, "Well, never mind, give it to Tangaloa." So now we have this absolutely disgruntled situation, because I feel like Jacob Fatu, I think this was the small seed planted for him to dip out and go join Roman. You know,
You
it
know?
it was just a
Yeah.
situation that you could see it. You could see the look on his face. Obviously, the whole boot thing is BS, but like it's still fun. But like the
Yeah,
fact that he's
I
just like hand a title to him, and like even though he kind of said what he said, after it, give him the hug and all that or crap like that, I feel like it is a seed planted. And
yes. Yep.
if the storytelling of WWE is ever the most relevant is in the small little moments when you're like, okay, I can see a little bit
Yep.
here. You know, it's it's like the first ingredient in the explosion of this cake. So like it's
Yeah.
it's you know it's not been mixed up yet, but we have the ingredients right now. So
Right. Yep.
I'm definitely looking forward to when it falls out. Because obviously we've had the multiple rumors and everything with war games being a bloodline civil war. So obviously we have about 2.5 months to figure out who's on which side of it. I really don't
Yeah.
feel like I feel like if Jacob leaves, we're gonna get another bloodline member of some degree somewhere. It's not
So,
gonna be
yeah.
Jimmy. It's not gonna be Jay. It's gonna be like Zilla or any of the literally the 20 million freaking bloodline people floating around. So
Yeah, I really think, it could be, Hikuleo joining up with his brothers and, Solo, and I can see Jacob Fatu, um, potentially joining up with Roman, and definitely Zilla Fatu showing up. But Rikishi apparently has 5 giant Samoan kids,
oh dude,
and
it's this the Samoan bloodline, like
yeah,
all BS
this
aside in stories and how they get played. That
yeah,
like the Samoan dynasty is real. It is very
yeah,
real. Like everybody's connected in some way, shape, or form. Whether it's story or it's real life. Like it's deep. It's
yeah,
they when they showed that family tree, when the Rock showed the family tree, it just
yeah,
like
yep,
it's about 100 deep. So, I don't
yeah.
think the Samoan bloodline's going away anytime soon in wrestling. Let's put it that way. Um, so we have the tag stuff. So now we have Cody Rhodes and Kevin Owens defeating A Town Down Under. And I feel like
Which yeah,
A Town Down Under. I feel like there's small cracks in that, but the fact that neither of them are relevant alone, I feel like they're just a tag team that's just gonna stick it out because no matter how many times
yeah.
each of them screw each other over, they
There's
seem to stick
nothing.
it out.
Yeah,
But
there's
the thing
nothing
is,
for
but
him.
like their personalities just work. Okay, Austin
Yeah,
Theory has always been ignorant as hell. You have
yeah.
Grayson Waller, who is so full of himself, the stage is not big enough for his head. But
And that's
his
yeah,
talk shows fire though. I like it. All talk shows aside, the Grayson Waller effect, it just hits.
yeah.
Like you got the
I'm
stage,
looking at a
you got like
picture.
every like from you got all like you have like the whole podcast stage, you got a camera going, you got stuff scrolling. Like it's taken Miz TV to like the next level. Like the
Right.
Grayson Waller effect is honestly the greatest talk show currently because the Miz TV's always has been like, basically just a bunch of
Yeah,
actress chairs and talking. Kevin Owens is usually just like a couple signs and chairs,
yeah.
and
Which
so
is fine for KO.
yeah,
Yeah.
because
Um,
that's just not his shtick. But man, the Grayson
yeah.
Waller effect.
Yeah, say what you will about Grayson Waller. You know, sometimes you find your niche and you enjoy being there and you do it really well. Other times you get pigeonholed into a character and you can't break out of it. Um, but for Grayson Waller, I think he's found his niche. He is, yeah, I don't like him.
But that's
But
the point. But that's the
yeah,
point.
and that's the
That's how
point,
the
and
Miz
that is the
started.
point.
That's how
And
the
yep,
Miz started.
I
Everybody
still don't like the
hated
Miz.
him.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love the
So
Miz, okay?
I
I am a
know they
Miz
both
guy
can go
through
on
and
about.
through, and it's not even about his ring presence, it's his family business balance, okay? Like, the
Eh,
fact
I don't care about that.
I
I
do,
care
I
about the
do.
character.
Like,
I'm a
I
mark.
because,
It's
like
still
but,
real
like,
to me.
I I love that he is hated, but yet he was the first for the longest time to be the only two-time Grand Slam champion. You can hate it, but like facts are facts. And obviously, like, and he's been like a nine something time, like you think like the second longest reigning IC like amount of times he's
Combined
held it.
IC champion. Yep.
I think Chris Jericho,
So
I think, is on the top of that, but
yeah.
you
You
know,
know, and that
but
means
that's the
that they're
thing is like
doing their job well. If you're like, you can't get past their television character to embrace like who they are as a performer. Yeah, you can
if
respect
you
the athlete and
love him or hate
uh
him, you feel a certain way about him, and that's the point.
right. And
It
and
doesn't
that
matter
yep,
if you're
that is
loved or hated.
100%
I
right.
mean,
Yep.
I don't know when Dominic will ever have a crowd that does not boo him. Like, I don't care
Probably
if he turns
never.
face. I don't see it. Unlike the day, unless he gets back with his dad and clears the air, he is going to get booed for the rest of his career.
You
And
know
guess
what?
what?
And
Guess what?
yep.
He fucking loves it. He
Yes.
loves it. Like, when you get like that's like some Miz level hatred, okay? Like,
Yep.
when you hate someone so much and it's just their character, it's not who they are as a
Yeah.
person. Like,
Right.
but like when you're so over, like how fast Dominic has essentially gotten over in the let's call it 3 years he's been on the main roster, like that is next level. Okay, you have to like be put into the absolute biggest dick on television to
Yes.
literally can't even get a word out. Like, and even
You
Triple H
know,
said in Triple H literally when he was out there one time with Dominic and he's like, "Oh man, I thought they piped in this noise, but man, this is real." But
yeah,
yeah,
they yeah. I digress. Grayson Waller, Austin Theory, they make a good heel team um along the lines of Pretty Deadly. They It's like Pretty Deadly comparison to um Austin and Grayson is just like you know what? They're both like evenly matched, like bullies.
yeah,
On-screen bullies and very
and
annoying characters with their mannerisms. And I
but
am
that's
just
that's
like,
the thing.
ugh,
Like you hate to love it and you love to hate it because like that
no, I
that is
genuinely just
that
hate
is
it.
that that is the amount of like creativity that WWE has, right?
Right,
Like they build these characters and like these guys like some of them are in character like for a life. Like if you ever watched like any of like the WWE like little documentary things and everything.
right,
And some of them talk like I'm on the road like 300 days a year, 350 days a year. So like you can't help but be the character, right? Because like that's why Sasha Banks had to leave, way back because like she was so into being that character that like she just couldn't escape it, right?
right.
And because you're playing that character, you're doing social media stuff. Like you might see him do matches like let's say 4 or 5 times a week, right? But like you don't see all the photo shoots, all the little video vignettes, the packages, all that stuff that they have to do and stay in character.
Yeah,
Like, you
yeah.
know,
It's a
like,
lot. It
you
is
know,
definitely a
and that's the
lot.
thing is like, but being a heel is the hardest one to maintain, right? When you're
You
just a
know,
good person, like you
yeah,
just have you're just a good person and you're riding on cloud nine. Your life's easy. But when you're a heel, like you can't all of a sudden just be nice. Like, it's so
yeah,
it's like
it's
you have to. I mean, now
yeah,
there are a few. Like honestly, Baron Corbin is honestly a nice guy. Like I've seen him multiple times, coming into, Van Andel down here in Grand Rapids, like,
Mhm.
and he's super chill. Like I've razzed him a little bit, but he's a good sport. He's a good guy. Even though he plays a bad guy,
Right.
he's a genuinely nice person. I mean, I actually gave like a couple years ago, I actually gave Rick Boogs an Uber ride, and he is every bit the same character in real life.
Right.
I'm talking jeans that look like they should not fit. He has a tank top he's repping the fanny pack, okay? This is like that's not character. That was just literally Rick Boogs, dude. Like super nice guy. Like, and like I said, being a heel is like you can also be a nice person. Like,
Right.
you can't go out in public and be like, "Oh, that was the one thing that kind of rubbed me the wrong way when the Y6 went out after, and all of a sudden they're just who they are. And I
Yeah.
feel like they kind of dropped the ball and that should not have been posted.
Yeah, you know what? I don't know where that came from, but, I think we're both about to maybe reference the same, Undertaker, clip, where it's like, protect the character at all costs. And I think wrestling has changed in such a way is that, you know, we want to respect the humans behind the characters, and understand that they are performers, that they are entertainers, and sometimes it's just in order to not have that world consume you, you step out of that character and you just live a normal life. And people's like, hey, aren't you on TV, and can I get a picture, and blah blah blah. It's like, yeah, it's good,
Absolutely.
good promotion. It's good for your soul. You're making someone happy, but also too, at the same time, I can understand the Undertaker's his philosophy and his belief about us, like, protect the character at all times. Kayfabe isn't dead. Um, just you know, don't let those pictures get online. Don't take any pictures. Have handlers to do certain things from you. Lay low. Do whatever you have to do to protect the integrity of the character. But also too, Bo Dallas hasn't had any type of like program or experience with this level of interest and intrigue in his career. So he's still thinking B team era uh
Right.
interactions. Like, you recognize me? Yeah, I'll take a picture with you. I mean, I would,
I mean,
if I
Curtis
was in
Axel will still never. He's got the longest reigning Royal Rumble. I mean, it's got to be a couple years now.
yeah. So yeah,
I chalk it
I
up though,
yeah,
man, because I think when you like, when you're in like wrestling, right? You have the good and bad guys, right? Like
right,
versus like movies where they're just doing a movie and then they can go back to being normal, you
right,
know. But it's like when you're doing something literally every week. I mean, it's the longest weekly episodic show of all time, and
right.
it's by a long shot too.
Long
I
shot.
mean, you're
Yep.
talking,
30, maybe 30 years,
yeah. I
you
mean,
know,
the
quickly.
amount of work that is. Like, dude, I could not imagine everything from the guys that hang the lights to setting up the ring. Like, I mean, there's been, and then you have like the in between stuff too. Like, there's been times that I've been at events where they're still getting the ring set up for the match, but the show has to go. So, like, they have the character that's walking out, walking super slow before they go to camera break, so then they can finish what they're doing. So, like, there's more talent than just the people wrestling in the ring. They have the easy part of it essentially. You know, I mean, you think of, all the lights, every part of every aspect of WWE programming. Yeah, you have 3 hours of a show, but guess what? You probably have 15 hours of setup, you know?
Yeah,
And so I
yeah.
I I tip my hat to the people that are in the back, the unknowns. But guess what? The show wouldn't go on unless they did their job. So huge shout out to setup crew, commentators that literally have to sit there for 3 hours. Like they don't like once they come out, they don't get bathroom breaks. It's very seldom they ever get a bathroom break. So you're
Yeah.
sitting there for 3 hours, you can't eat, you can't drink. You're just there for 3 hours. But so I digress about bathroom problems. But so Bash in Berlin, we
By the
essentially
way, just if anybody was wondering, um, an estimate of there's been 31 years, 7 months of potentially every week there's been a Monday Night Raw. So for 31 years and 7 months, WWE has done a weekly episodic show called Monday Night Raw.
dude, so then that means I was like about
And
6
if
years old.
so,
Like
and if
for the existence of my life on this world, on this planet, WWE has had Monday Night Raw. That is insane.
yeah,
Like,
it's insane.
you know,
So there's been at least, if we were to take 536 days, divide that by 7, there's been potentially upwards of 1,648 episodes of Monday Night Raw in some capacity.
yeah, that's just insane to even think
Yeah,
about. Like, screw all you TV shows.
yeah,
So let's just run back and we'll just kind of finish out here with basically the matches for Bash in Berlin. We have 5 on the books, which honestly means either that's the show or we have at least one more.
mm,
I really don't know what it would be, just because LA Knight already defended his title recently, so that seems like that's not gonna be a possibility. The IC title, I mean, the only match with the IC that would honestly make sense would be Braun Breaker versus Ilya Dragunov. But I don't know for certain when Ilya is coming back. There was a pretty serious bump that he did take. All kayfabe wrestling character beyond. Like he legitimately got hurt. I'm sorry. You see what happened to him? Friggin'
yeah,
rattled his friggin' head across that thing. Like they don't put those X's up with their hands just for S&Gs. Those are legitimate like injuries. So,
yeah,
but so we basically have Cody Rhodes versus Kevin Owens. We have Gunther versus Randy Orton. We have Damian and Rhea versus Dominic and Liv. CM Punk, Drew McIntyre in a strap match. And we have the women's tag team champions, the Unholy Union, Alba Fire and Isla Dawn versus Bianca and Jade Cargill. I feel like there's probably one more in there.
mm,
Obviously we have, one episode of Raw, one episode of SmackDown. So I mean,
right.
like
There might be an NXT match. So yeah,
I mean, you have, let's see, SmackDown, Raw. So I mean, we could be sitting at 5, honestly. I think it'd be a disappointment, just because we kind of have the women's tag team titles that's pretty much universal. So then we basically have 2 Raw, 2 SmackDown. But like,
right.
I feel like they need to really start packing these PLEs in with more matches.
You know,
Like
I think
they can even be wash matches, but I
you
still
know,
I feel
yeah, there's something to be said, about the fatigue of a PLE or a pay-per-view. They're just there's something then there's a fine line between, oh, this is a great, match card. The matches weren't too long, they were all exciting, they all gave us stories. Um,
but
the
it's the
night wasn't too long.
but it's the first Bash in Berlin, so I feel like they really need to step their game up a little bit.
And maybe they
I mean, because honestly, even the matches that are in Saudi Arabia aren't really they're not 40,000 people. They're usually like 15,000 ish. So I mean, we do have, you know, the Clash of the Castle, kind of a similar vignette, kind of a similar setup. So I mean, maybe they will just kind of keep the status quo.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I like you said, maybe they don't want to really maybe they want to drag out, you know, let's say whoever headlines it, right? Like I honestly I really don't know who would headline it at this point. It's definitely not going to be Damian and Rhea. It's definitely not going to be the tag team titles. Maybe they go completely out of the norm and have CM Punk and Drew be the headliner. I don't know.
Yeah, I
If they
think
want it for the sake of where it's at, they'd have Gunther and Randy Orton. I don't really see Cody Rhodes and Kevin Owens
no,
headlining. So I
Cody,
mean,
yeah.
I
Yeah,
think Gunther
Cody
and
and
Randy
Kevin
will
are not
headline.
headlining. I think they will open up the main event. So I think it'll be Cody and Kevin, uh, Drew and Punk, and then
The tag team, and then Rhea and Damian, and then
no.
finishing.
I think I would probably put Rhea. I would probably put the intergender match right before Cody
The
and
main event.
Kevin, and
Yeah.
then Punk and McIntyre, and then
Then the two
Gunther. Yeah, then Gunther and Randy closing out the show. Just because I would want like I would probably want like a native son, you know, someone from that area region to close out the show, either so the hometown people can, you know, feel good, you know, with like, you know, oh, this is a hometown kid, you know,
Yeah.
because yeah, just like probably a lot of people, I don't see Randy getting his 15th in Berlin. I
It
do see,
as much as we want it, and as
yeah.
much as, like, the story dictates his, you know, his goal to get that 15th, I
Hmm.
don't think it's against Gunther. I think the next time Randy wins a title it's when he somehow weasels his way into a Money in the Bank match.
You know, at this particular
I
time, I don't
don't
think he needs to like. We don't necessarily need heel Orton because he's kind of he's yeah he's kind of like
but, like,
living in this
it
like
just seems like really the only way it seems like he's going to get number 15.
I don't
Like, I feel
think
like I
he
mean,
gets
at
number
least
15 probably next year around this time around SummerSlam because we've got John Cena, we've potentially got The Rock coming back, and you've got to like schedule all these things. I think Randy gets his 15th next year, and it'll probably be the world title.
so do
So
you
the
think
yeah,
for pipe dream purposes, do we feel let's say Randy goes another 3 to 4 years, right? I
mhm.
really don't think he has much beyond 5. I really don't. Even with a pretty limited wrestling schedule that he does have, I really don't see us getting to 2030 with Randy Orton still in WWE. Now,
You know,
do you think
no,
that
yeah.
he comes to the he meets the group with 16, and I think we just have as far as championships, you basically have the Mount Rushmore with John Cena, Randy Orton, Ric Flair, and then Triple H, right? Because I think Triple H is 14. So like,
You know, yeah, you know,
hold on
I
one
don't
second.
know if he gets to 16.
Hold on one second. Yeah, so I think Randy Orton gets to 16 to finish his career.
You know, I don't think he gets to 16. I think he gets close to the end of his career and he's going for 16 and he doesn't get it, which is fine.
I
It
mean, he's
just,
either way, he's in the top 3.
I
Like, I
really,
mean,
yeah,
because
yeah.
you have, I mean, you basically have Ric Flair and John Cena, and then you have Triple H and Randy Orton. And I think But I don't think that there's gonna be another person in the next 10 to 15 years that reaches more than 10.
It
Because like
depends. It depends
I
on how
think
long they sign some. Is
well, I
like
think that like it's just the fact that we seem to have more of these longer reigns. So like, like Gunther's IC, Roman Reigns' 3 years, unless they start going like with a less, I hate to say lesser wrestlers, winning and losing like they did back in the day. I just feel like how they operate now, I feel like just doesn't make me believe that we're going to ever have, those 14, 15, 16 time champions. I feel like you're definitely going to have, I would say you're going to have, you know, like as far as the secondary titles, right? Like I think the IC title, I think that and the United States Championship, I think those will be held. I think the next, I mean, if you want to fact check me, I think it's Chris Jericho, and then the Miz. I think maybe Dolph Ziggler, that have the most IC title reigns, and I think Jericho's at like I think 10 or 11. I think the Miz has like 8 or 9. Um, I think Ziggler probably has at least 5 or 6. Um, so I think this even the secondary titles, I think we're we want we'll get a 5 or 6 time champion, but just how the format is now, I definitely don't see, us having those hold the title for 3 months, 4 months, and then lose it, and then, like, 6 months later get it back or because John Cena essentially doesn't have the long term like, I think he's not much different than I think he's got maybe, like, 2,000 days total or something holding the championships, I think, and that's a pure guess, but
so combined reigns is Chris Jericho with 9. Number of reigns 9. So let's see here. The Miz is at 8. Dolph Ziggler, Jeff Hardy, Wade Barrett. Um, Jeff Jarrett is at 6. And then Kofi Kingston is at 4. Triple H is at 5.
yeah, so
So
it's
yeah,
not a huge it's not really a huge number, even the longevity of some. I mean,
oh, I should have
yeah,
just
it's
did it that way. So yeah, you were really close with the top 3, 4. You know you mentioned the Miz and Dolph Ziggler. Jeff Jarrett is there. Rob Van Dam, Wade Barrett, Jeff Hardy, Triple H, Edge, uh, Adam Copeland. So those are all performers that have 5 or more reigns.
mhm.
But Chris Jericho still, um, yeah. I could see the Miz getting another Intercontinental and tying with Chris Jericho before I see Randy Orton getting to 16 uh, world champion wins or title reigns. So yeah, I'm going on
Yeah.
record as saying he gets 15 next year, but he doesn't get 16 before the end of his career.
So
So
he
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 would
he beats out Triple H, but he does not meet John C
right.
and crazy thing is that so I seen this clip the other day. I don't know if I sent it in the group chat or not, but, the fact that essentially John Cena said himself that from a spectacle that Roman Reigns is the GOAT as far as impact on the business, as far as just the sheer. skill and talent and the draw. Like, and this is John Cena saying this. So like,
So, obviously there's this indoctrination with some professional wrestlers, or that professional wrestlers always go through, is you put the younger talent above you. Um, that keeps the business alive. It keeps the art form alive. And I would say um John Cena may be right in a couple of areas. Um Roman Reigns in this incarnation of his character, yes. Roman Reigns overall, that's a tough sell for me, because Roman Reigns um as a draw was not it for me. But that's not to say that his work ethic or his in-ring presence
I
wasn't great.
definitely, I
I
think
need to see how the rest of his career goes. Now, Roman Reigns as an athlete, because I thought about this a couple of days ago, and I am going to paraphrase what I determined when I was thinking about it. The sheer fact that Roman Reigns is someone who's going to have a lifelong battle with cancer, leukemia, even though it is in remission, and still be the caliber of athlete and performer that he is, puts him in a category above others. You know what I'm saying? Um, so that right there alone, just imagine if he did not have the health concerns that he has, what type of athlete could he be? It's the equivalent of something, you're not only fighting to perform, but you're fighting to keep your body healthy enough so it doesn't work overtime fighting off leukemia, right? So with that in mind, I think Roman Reigns is in a class of very few performers um, that can do it at that level night in and night out, uh, just because of the health concerns he has. Um,
like the fact
yeah,
that you're
so
dealing with that much stuff and still wrestling at a
physically,
caliber like,
at
oh yeah,
his
dude. I mean,
caliber,
it's
at his level. So when you add that in to
like
everything
it's
else
an
that goes on,
like an overwhelming, like the whole picture, the
right?
whole story of it is an amazement of itself.
Yes,
Because like
absolutely.
the cancer thing is not, it's not kayfabe, it's not like some character thing. Like, no, he legitimately has it. He's had it for a
Right.
long, and
Yeah,
he's
and
been putting
yeah,
matches together like he's on cloud freaking 9,
right.
you know?
And yes, does he have help with those things? Of course, who wouldn't? Um, Professional
But
wrestling is not an eye
but
business.
do you think that Roman Reigns is the caliber he is without the bloodline, though? Like, obviously, he obviously independently, obviously, he's headlining WrestleMania and stuff like that. Do you think that he reaches the pinnacle that he is now without have the bloodline, like, whole story?
If he didn't make that heel turn, the answer is no. The heel turn got him to this conversation. It is the equivalent of, some people will get it, some people won't. Denzel Washington winning an Academy Award for playing a very crooked cop, as opposed to Denzel Washington winning an Academy Award for all the other characters he's played.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like, we like the bad guys that have a redeeming story.
Right.
In Western culture, some cultures are just like, hey, you've always been a bad guy. Why do I care that you're now doing good stuff? You were supposed to be doing good stuff a long time ago, and
Right.
Roman Reigns couldn't buy a like, when he was
Right,
like,
and I
you
think
know
that, like, that's the
yeah,
business though, you know? Like, because it's kind of like what's I hate to like not even draw not a comparison, but like you think of the fact that if Dominic was still a nice guy, like he'd be where he's at. Do you
I
think? And
think
honestly, like I don't think Damien would be where he's at if he didn't have that turn. If Rhea never dyed her hair, she'd and
I
basically
think
engulfed her love for metal music and
right.
emo and just
I
that aggression,
I
she wouldn't be
think
where she's at. I feel like that's the
I
next
think
step
there's
for a lot of
a
wrestlers.
lot there. There has to be a level of character development. I remember um years ago, Edge did a promo on another character, and he mentioned the words character development. You're still stuck there, and this is character development. And I thought about it, and it's right. There needs to be growth of a character in order for it to resonate with the ever-changing taste of society, right?
Oh, yeah.
How do
I mean,
we how but the ultimate goal with Roman Reigns is to get him to an undeniable babyface level. And the only way to do that was
well, in the yeah.
to have this change, in his character to go
Well
from good to, you
well, and
know,
even him when we're basically getting a face turn, with the let's call it the OG bloodline, you
mhm,
know, I think that because he's gotten over so much as the tribal chief or the OTC now, knowledge. But like and so like I think the fact that he got so much fan base and so much love for being hated that I think even him being a face, he's still going to get the same draw. And especially now that
right.
we're essentially, we're getting him kind of back on TV again, and obviously it seems to be small doses because we need to let
Mhm,
that storyline really, really fester, really, really build to Survivor Series, which is obviously 2.5 months ago, 2.5 months, I mean, in near future. So like we have to have a slow build on this. So like Roman showing up every week is not going to happen.
right.
Like
Yeah,
Roman Reigns might show up next week, and then maybe Jimmy Uso comes back, and they still got the crap beat out of him, right? And then all of a
right,
sudden, maybe 2 weeks on the road, we see another person return. Now it's 3-on-4. Oh, we're still the numbers game. And then all of a
right.
sudden you have, and then all of a sudden you have, let's say, you know, Jacob Fatu is just not there or something, right? And then we
Mhm,
have this camaraderie and this whole thing, and then all of a sudden you see Jacob Fatu come out and he thinks, "Oh, he's here to help, Solo," and then all of a sudden he beats the crap out of Solo, and then the numbers are flipped, and I
right,
think that's going to lead us into SummerSlam, is that Solo, Tamatonga, and Tongaloa will obviously have another person gained, but it'll be a 4-on-4, right?
right.
Even though I think Survivor
Yeah.
Series, I think it's 5-on-5, but like I man, I'm looking
I
forward to it. Like, I'm
yeah, I
looking
think
forward to every bit of story that builds to that spot because when we get there, we know it's gonna be insane.
yeah. I really think that what could happen is it all comes to a head at Survivor Series, and what we get is one bloodline is going to win, the other one's going to lose. Um, Solo's going to go on his own. Um, we've got Gorillas of Destiny, which is all of Haku's kids. Um, you know, going away, doing their thing. And then we've got the OG bloodline, and they either go their separate ways or they try to figure something else out. But eventually, we are going to get Roman and Jacob Fatu in the ring. I think that's a much better story than
Rock.
The Rock. I think because
So do you think that's WrestleMania?
no, that's not WrestleMania. That I don't think Roman being in the WWE is going to be long enough. So I give Roman another 2 years and he pulls a Dwayne Johnson. Um, acting and Hollywood should be much easier on his body, especially the older he gets, with his leukemia fluctuating up and down. Hopefully, that gives him much more time with his family, much more time with his life. He manages it really well. It's just, it's equivalent to like someone who's an athlete and a diabetic. If it's not managed and you're not paying attention, you're just hurting yourself, right? So I would rather know that Roman Reigns, the character, went out, in a blaze of glory at a young age, made the transition to acting, and is still on people's screens and still in people's minds, and is still as healthy
And
as
the thing is,
opposed to him,
he can
you
still
know,
make appearances.
yeah, you know,
I mean, it's I think he's reached a level that he's a draw, right? And
yeah, yeah,
much like John Cena could show up in a given episode of anything, and then he'd just be beloved. Same thing
hmm,
with like the Undertaker.
yep,
Same thing with anybody. Honestly, every time Triple H comes out, I mean, it's you just have those certain people, those certain wrestlers, those certain characters that no matter what, they could show up down the road. That's essentially the CM
yeah,
Punk syndrome, right? Like
yeah, yeah.
you could leave for as long as you want and still come back,
And still
and
come
you
back and
still,
still get a pop and
you
still get a
know,
reaction, whether it's positive or
exactly.
negative. Um, but I think the Roman Reigns and Bloodline era is going to start turning that corner to this next generation of Samoan wrestlers that are coming in. And it'll be their responsibility to carry that and have a presence to do so. Uh,
Those are big shoes to fill too. Like, I mean, it's
we know that Solo isn't it in his character right now, but we don't know what the future holds. And that's the joy of professional wrestling. Every week it changes. And I think if I were to, fantasy book, this would be my way of starting to book Roman Reigns leaving, because eventually that's his goal, is to not beat up his body while something else is beating up his body.
right. Yeah.
And
Well,
they've got many of stars that can fill in that role. Jacob Fatu is just, he's a world champion in waiting. Braun Breaker, Odyssey Jones.
yeah. I
For
mean,
some
I
strange
think
reason, I thought he was shorter, but he's
yeah,
not.
we
So
really have we have an incredible crop of wrestlers that
mhm.
are on the come up. I mean, honestly, Grayson Waller. I really think he has an it factor where like it doesn't matter what he does, but you love to hate him, right?
Yeah,
Honestly,
but
like I mean,
just because you have a hate for somebody or a very big passion for somebody doesn't mean that they are world champion material.
well,
Like
and
you know what, I think our truth should be a world champion, but what does it take to get him to that world champion?
well, and
Well,
and like you said, it's all a matter of how they book him. I mean, like you
mhm,
said, Solo doesn't look like much now, but what would he look like in 5 years? Maybe,
yeah,
I think the best thing for him was being just the street champ and being that and that alone. That gave him more of an aggressive style of wrestling. He
yeah,
didn't have anybody's help. He was just doing the thing. And I think that, that's, definitely,
yeah. I
those
think that can
situations.
definitely be
And
his bread and butter. Um,
well, let's just call it, if they're
yeah,
booked right, we have, a lot of caliber of wrestlers coming in. We have fresh blood. You have your Carmelo Hayes, you got your Braun Breakers, you
mhm,
got your Ilya Dragunov. You have even like down in NXT right now, honestly, like, there's so much down there. You have Wesley, who, obviously I don't see him as a champion, but I definitely see him as basically a revamped Ricochet,
Yeah, I was just
You
thinking
know,
the same thing, and we
and
saw how
so
they I think they misused Ricochet a lot, but I think with the Bloodline, as long as Roman has an in with the WWE and The Rock, aka Dwayne Johnson, has any type of pull with upper executives in WWE, I think the booking for some of the Bloodline members, especially the newer Bloodline members, will be better for them because they don't want to embarrass the family. Or it's it's all just a temporary thing. You all get your, you get your time to shine. And if you make it, you make it. And if you don't, you don't. And right now, who I see making it, bar none, is Jacob Fatu. I think Zilla could make it, but to me, Zilla Fatu gives me the vibe of an early 20s Randy Orton with some of his antics that I've heard. Um, level of arrogance.
yeah, I mean,
And
I it's
you know,
some of
but
these guys seem if they were independent by themselves, they would be
yeah,
just as destructive because
yeah,
Jacob Fatu is a loose cannon. He does not
that's
need,
his, that's the character that he portrays. But from what I've seen backstage with some of the interviews, he is just like, man, it's been a long time. I am not gonna mess this up because I
well,
know
and
what
that's
it's like,
and
not being with
it's
the
yeah.
company. So
So we'll put a pin in this, and I think we're definitely gonna see this week leading up to Bash in Berlin.
mhm,
We might get another match, possibly. Who knows? Because obviously we still have IC. The IC still really hasn't had a match yet, but at least LA Knight had a match, so maybe
right.
IC, maybe Ilya Dragunov wins against Braun Breaker at Bash in Berlin. Who knows? I don't know. We don't really, but again, it's the old mantra that I say is wait and see, right? Wait,
Yep.
we'll just wait and see. Because we don't know. Nothing is for certain. Nothing is written in stone. So we'll definitely, we'll see you guys next week. We'll definitely cover, the results of Bash in Berlin, the good, the bad, the wish this would have happened. So, we'll see you guys next week. This is the Lockdown Podcast. Peace.